Hello, Mr. Mayor.
Well, how you doing, George? Good to see you. How the hell are you?
Just fine.
Good. Welcome to the Pioneer Village. My name is Steve Nielson. Some call me the mayor of this village. We are here to celebrate a major event. More than 170 years ago, Provo was founded, April 1st, 1849. Can you believe that? How time flies. Now, Provo has been a major contributor to the state of Utah. I mean, education, resources, industry, a number of other things. Now, I also want you to be especially attentive to this Pioneer Village. It is a reproduction of the early Provo. We have in this village original cabins, not makeovers, original cabins. Probably the best example, best adobe house in the state. We welcome you to the Provo Village, and we also want you to know that we are always looking for volunteers. We plan on opening the village probably around Memorial Day, so you can come in. But if you're interested in volunteering, please come and get in touch with us, and we'll put you to work. We love this work here. Now, I also want to introduce you to a special friend of mine. This is George Washington Bean, one of the early founders of Provo. We are so fortunate to have him here with us.
My name is George Washington Bean. I was born April 1st, 1831, just 32 years after the death of General George Washington, after whom I was named. My parents gave me a great honor when they named me after him because he was a national hero. Let me introduce you to a few members of my family. My last name being Bean, you can imagine. Let's see, there's Uncle Lima Bean, Aunt Pinto Bean, Cousin Kidney Bean. Oh, and look, there's sweet Granny Bean. I think she's part jelly bean. You know, when the beans get together, the jokes are pretty corny. Let me share you a few stories from my autobiography. I arrived in the Salt Lake Valley in 1847 and was given this medallion for the Golden Jubilee for those who'd been here 50 years ago. I'm very proud of this. I was part of the group that founded Provo on April 1st, 1849. It was my 18th birthday. I was one of the first to turn a shovelful of earth for the irrigation ditches. Provo had a local militia, and I was a member. We even had a cannon on a raised platform. I was walking by one day, and Lieutenant William Dayton called to me to join him in firing off the cannon. I ran up the ladder, and we loaded it and fired it. No problem. In the excitement, we loaded it a second time, but forgot an important step. We did not swab it out to kill the sparks that might remain in it. That was a disastrous mistake. We used a ramrod very much like this one to shove the next charge in, which was a couple pounds of black powder wrapped in cotton. Some glowing sparks were still inside the cannon, and they lit the black powder as we were pushing hard on the ramrod. It ignited and made a dreadful roar, and people came running from all over town. It threw Lieutenant Dayton 30 feet away. He died from a large splinter in his jugular vein, and I had my left hand blown off and other injuries. Poor Celia Hunt found my left hand in her dooryard. She recognized it by the ring on my pinky finger. I was in intense pain as they carried me on a makeshift stretcher through town. The people thought, because of my severe injuries, that I was going to die. I thought I was going to die. An Army doctor had just arrived in Salt Lake, and he made it down to Provo as soon as he found out. Dr. Blake gave me excellent care, treated my eyes, face, chest, which are black with powder burns. I was blind for 20 days after the explosion. He amputated the shattered bone on my left arm, but left a useful stub, but no hand. He attended to the cuts in my right arm and hand. My right thigh, breast, and neck were filled with splinters from when the wooden ramrod had exploded. The doctor's concern was that the splinters would make their way into my vital organs. Many splinters were removed at the time, but others stayed in my body and were found later. Over a 20-year period, 200 splinters worked their way out or were removed. Ma gave me this canning jar to put the splinters in. Lying there blind and in pain with not much hope for living, I prayed I could die and leave all the pain behind. 3 weeks went by with my life right there on the edge when, to my surprise, I heard the voice of Brother Brigham and the first presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter Days. They'd heard of my mishap and made the 2-day trip from Salt Lake to attend to me. My dear worried Ma asked,
Brother Brigham, do you think he can live?
Of course he can and will.
Then he came to me and took my remaining hand and asked,
George, do you want to live?
His very handshake gave me strength, and I answered, yes, if I can do any good.
Then you shall live.
The counselors anointed and sealed me, and Brother Brigham gave me a marvelous blessing. It was like an electric shock that went from my head to my foot, and it took the severe pain with it. He pled with the Lord that all my wounds might heal quickly. My life of despair went to a life of love, faith, and gratitude, and a desire to do God's will. The next day, the scales fell from my eyes, and I saw light. I still see that light today. During my long illness, I had many visits from the friendly Indians who sympathized with my suffering. They taught me their language, and I taught them mine. I was given a gift for the Indian languages, so I could help them later in negotiations, and they saved my life many times. Brigham Young sent Porter Rockwell and me out on peace expeditions. Eating with polite company was a challenge. It wasn't polite to just grab food with my one hand like I did with my friends around the campfire. Plus, I had no way of safely using a knife, no way to hold the food. So I invented an eating utensil that was part knife and part fork. Nork. I never patented it, but others did give me credit for it. Because of the Civil War, many soldiers with similar amputations used my invention. Thanks to the village blacksmith, Matt, for making this. In order to help others and to make my way in life, I became a lawyer and later a judge. I had to work hard throughout my life, and I taught my children to do the same. Speaking of children, I was blessed with many fine sons and daughters. My son Willard became known as the Fighting Preacher and helped the church purchase Camorra Hill and other sites important to church history. Let's now hear from Willard Bean.
My name is Willard Washington Bean. My pa is George Washington Bean. What do you say, Pa? Shall we go around? I'll do it with one hand tied behind my back. I was born here in Provo. I grew up here. I grew up tough. My pa said pioneering was difficult at times. With every day there was a new lesson to be learned. But the greater the task well done, the greater the blessing and pleasure in that success. My pa only had one arm, having the other arm blown off in a cannon accident. The Utes called him Poretz, which means one-armed. But regardless, he could drive a 4-mule team, angled through a gully, controlling all 8 reins in the wagon brake, getting the wagon to safety, all with one arm. There were no excuses in our home. My pa accomplished much and won awards. He worked as a translator, representing natives in trials. He received many death threats. He would translate for the Shoshone tribe, but because of that, the Utes would threaten him because they thought he was on their side. And then he would translate for the Utes, and the Shoshones would threaten him because they thought he was on the other side. But he was just a translator. All of us kids, we made our own way in life and accomplished so much. Me? Well, I did well with boxing, and it served me well for a nearly 25-year mission in Palmyra, where the opposition was fierce. Many people wanted to beat me up, but I felt no need to run. I was tough like my pa. And over time, me and the people of Palmyra became good friends and respected each other. My name is Willard Washington Bean. My middle name is Washington, like my pa, honoring our first president, General George Washington. This country was founded by tough people. We've gone through lots of tough experiences, but we've become better for it.
We want to thank the Bean family for being here. That's been a real treat for us. We want to thank the rest of you for sharing with us this special occasion, the birthday of Provo. We want you to know we have a great place here. We're anxious to have you. Now, in some ways, I guess we're all beans. Human beings. Some of us are pinto, some of us are jelly beans, but we make a good stew together. Thank you very much for coming, and God bless you.